Have you ever opened your refrigerator and wondered, am I storing this the right way? You're not alone. Many of us, especially as we get older, assume the fridge is the safest place to keep our food fresh. But what if I told you that some of the items chilling in there right now might be doing more harm than good? It's easy to think cold equals preservation, but nature doesn't always work that way. Some foods lose their flavor, nutrients, and even develop harmful changes when stored at low temperatures. And for seniors, whose immune systems might not be as strong as they once were, these small mistakes can add up over time. Today, we're going to talk about common foods that should never see the inside of your fridge, and why. This isn't just about taste or texture. It's about keeping you healthy, energized, and free from avoidable risks. So let's start with a kitchen staple you probably have in your fridge right now. Potatoes. Potatoes. The silent starch sabotage. Potatoes are a comfort food for many of us. Mashed, roasted, or baked, they're a versatile favorite. But here's something you might not know. Storing raw potatoes in the fridge can actually make them less healthy. When potatoes are exposed to cold temperatures, their starches begin converting into sugars much faster than they would at room temperature. Now, that might not sound like a big deal at first, but here's the catch. When those sugar-heavy potatoes are cooked at high heat, say baked or fried, they can form a chemical called acrylamide. Studies have linked acrylamide to potential cancer risks, especially in animal testing. While research is still ongoing, why take the chance? And it's not just about health. Refrigerated potatoes often turn oddly sweet or develop a gritty, mushy texture when cooked. Instead of that fluffy, hearty bite you love, you end up with something that just doesn't taste right. So, what's the solution? Keep your potatoes in a cool, dark place, like a pantry or a cupboard, away from moisture. A mesh bag or a wooden crate works great because it allows for airflow. Simple, right? But this one small change can make a big difference in both flavor and safety. Bread. Why the fridge makes it stale faster. Now, let's talk about bread. There's nothing quite like a fresh slice with a bit of butter, maybe toasted to perfection. But if you've been storing your loaf in the fridge, you might be robbing yourself of that simple pleasure. Here's the science behind it. Bread stales fastest at refrigerator temperatures. That's because the cold causes the starch molecules in bread to recrystallize, turning it dry and crumbly almost overnight. You might have noticed this yourself. Bread from the fridge often feels tough, like it's been sitting out for days, even if it's technically still fresh. And there's another problem. When you take refrigerated bread out and it warms up, condensation forms inside the bag. That moisture creates the perfect environment for mold to grow. For seniors, especially those with weaker immune systems, mold exposure is something we want to avoid. So, where should you keep your bread? At room temperature, in a bread box or a sealed container. If you won't finish it within a few days, slice it and freeze it. Frozen bread toasts up beautifully, and you'll never have to deal with rubbery slices again. Onions. The fridge's unwelcome guest. Onions add depth and flavor to so many dishes, soups, stir-fries, even salads. But if you're storing whole onions in the fridge, you might be shortening their shelf life and inviting some unwanted kitchen surprises. Whole onions need airflow. When trapped in the humid environment of your refrigerator, they absorb moisture, which makes them soft and prone to mold. Even worse, onions release strong sulfur compounds that can seep into other foods. Ever opened your fridge and thought, why does my butter taste like onions? Now you know. And if you've ever cut an onion and stored the leftover half in the fridge, you might have noticed it gets slimy or develops a strange odor. That's bacteria at work. For seniors, foodborne illnesses can be especially dangerous, so it's best to avoid risks where we can. The fix. Keep whole onions in a dry, well-ventilated spot, like a mesh bag in your pantry. Once cut, store the remainder in an airtight container and use it within a day or two. Now that we've covered potatoes, bread, and onions, you might be looking at your fridge a little differently. But we're just getting started. Next time, we'll talk about tomatoes, garlic, and coffee. 3 more everyday foods that don't belong in the cold. In the meantime, take a peek inside your fridge. Are any of these foods hiding in there? Making small changes now can lead to better health, better flavor, and fewer worries down the road. And remember, good food is one of life's simplest joys. Let's make sure we're storing it the right way. Now that we've talked about potatoes, bread, and onions, let's move on to some other everyday foods that might surprise you. These are items many of us automatically toss in the refrigerator without a second thought. But just like we learned earlier, sometimes what seems like the safest choice isn't actually the best one. Tomatoes. When cold kills the flavor. There's nothing quite like the taste of a ripe, juicy tomato, unless that tomato has been in the fridge. If you've ever bitten into a refrigerated tomato and thought it tasted bland or mealy, there's a scientific reason for that. Tomatoes are tropical fruits at heart. When we store them in the cold, something tragic happens to their delicate cellular structure. The cold damages the membranes inside the tomato that create those wonderful flavors we love. That's why a refrigerated tomato often tastes more like wet cardboard than sunshine. But it's not just about taste. Cold storage also reduces the tomato's nutritional value, particularly its vitamin C content. For seniors looking to get the most nutrition from their food, this is an easy fix. Simply keep your tomatoes on the counter, stem side down, away from direct sunlight. If they start getting too ripe, that's the perfect time to make a fresh sauce or add them to a soup. Garlic. From superfood to spoiled. Garlic is truly a miracle food. It's been shown to help with everything from blood pressure to immune function. But here's something most people don't realize. Refrigerating garlic can actually destroy many of its health benefits. When you put garlic in the fridge, 2 bad things happen. First, the cloves start to sprout prematurely, becoming bitter and rubbery. Second, and more concerning, chopped garlic stored in oil can develop a dangerous bacteria called botulism. This is especially risky for seniors, as botulism can cause serious illness. The solution is simple. Keep your whole garlic bulbs in a dry, dark place with good air circulation. A mesh bag or open basket works perfectly. If you've already chopped some garlic, mix it with a little vinegar or lemon juice before storing in the fridge, and use it within a couple days. Better yet, just chop fresh garlic when you need it. The flavor will be brighter, and you'll get all those wonderful health benefits intact. Coffee. Why your morning cup tastes off. For many of us, that first cup of coffee in the morning is sacred. But if you're storing your coffee beans or grounds in the refrigerator, you might be sabotaging your own brew without even realizing it. Coffee is hygroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture and odors from its environment. Your fridge is full of both. From last night's leftovers to that half-used onion we talked about earlier. Every time you open the fridge door, your coffee is absorbing those smells and flavors. That's why refrigerated coffee often tastes off. There's another problem. The antioxidants in coffee that make it so good for us, those same compounds that may help protect brain function and heart health, break down faster when exposed to moisture and temperature fluctuations. The right way to store coffee? In an airtight container at room temperature, away from light and heat. If you buy in bulk, keep a small amount in your kitchen and freeze the rest in an airtight bag. Just be sure to let it come to room temperature before opening to prevent condensation. We've covered some major offenders already, but there are still more foods that don't belong in your refrigerator. In our next session, we'll talk about honey, bananas, and olive oil. 3 more everyday items that many people store incorrectly. You might be surprised to learn that honey never spoils at room temperature, or that refrigerating bananas actually makes them ripen incorrectly. And olive oil? Putting it in the fridge can destroy many of its heart-healthy properties. But for now, why not take a quick look in your kitchen? If you find any tomatoes, garlic, or coffee in the fridge, consider giving them a new home. Small changes like these can make a big difference in how your food tastes and how good it is for you. After all, when we reach our golden years, we deserve to enjoy our food at its very best. Remember, our kitchens should work for us, not against us. And sometimes, the simplest changes can have the biggest impact on our health and happiness. We've come a long way in our journey through the kitchen, learning which foods actually suffer when we store them in the refrigerator. Today, we're going to wrap up with 3 final items that might surprise you: honey, bananas, and olive oil. These are foods many of us instinctively chill, but as you'll see, nature actually designed them to thrive at room temperature. Honey, nature's perfect preservative. Let's start with one of nature's most miraculous foods, honey. Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are still perfectly edible after thousands of years. That's right, honey never spoils when stored properly. So, why do so many of us keep it in the fridge? When you refrigerate honey, it crystallizes much faster, turning thick and grainy. While crystallized honey isn't harmful, it's certainly less pleasant to use. More importantly, repeatedly taking honey in and out of the fridge introduces moisture into the jar. And moisture is honey's only real enemy. It can lead to fermentation, giving your honey an odd, sour taste. The solution couldn't be simpler. Store your honey in a sealed container at room temperature, away from direct sunlight. If your honey does crystallize, which can happen naturally over time, just place the jar in warm water to gently return it to its liquid state. Remember, honey has survived for millennia without refrigeration. It certainly doesn't need our help to stay fresh. Bananas, tropical fruits that hate the cold. Next, let's talk about bananas, probably the most commonly refrigerated fruit that absolutely shouldn't be. Here's why. Bananas are tropical fruits that continue to ripen after being picked. When you put them in the fridge, you disrupt this natural process in ways that damage both their texture and flavor. The cold causes the banana's skin to turn black quickly, which makes many people think the fruit is going bad. But here's the interesting part. While the skin darkens, the actual fruit inside stops ripening properly. You end up with bananas that are simultaneously overripe on the outside and underripe on the inside, with a strange, mushy texture and muted flavor. For the best bananas, keep them at room temperature. If they're ripening faster than you can eat them, here's a great trick. Peel them, store them in an airtight container in the freezer, and use them later for smoothies or banana bread. This way, you'll always have perfectly ripe bananas when you want them, without any of the problems caused by refrigeration. Olive oil, when cold, destroys good fats. Finally, let's discuss olive oil, often called liquid gold, for its incredible health benefits. Rich in monounsaturated fats and antioxidants, quality olive oil can help with everything from heart health to reducing inflammation. But when we store it in the fridge, we might be destroying many of these benefits. Refrigeration causes olive oil to solidify and become cloudy. While this change isn't harmful in itself, the constant temperature fluctuations from taking it in and out of the fridge can lead to oxidation. This process breaks down the healthy fats and creates free radicals, exactly what we're trying to avoid when we choose olive oil for our health. The best way to store olive oil is in a dark glass bottle or tin, in a cool, dark cupboard, away from heat sources. If you buy in bulk, keep a small amount in your kitchen and store the rest in a wine cooler or basement, where the temperature stays consistently cool but not cold. This way, you'll preserve all those wonderful health benefits and flavors that make olive oil so special. Putting it all together. Now that we've covered all these foods, Let's take a moment to think about how we can reorganize our kitchens for better health. It's not about making dramatic changes, just small adjustments that can have a big impact over time. Start by designating specific areas in your kitchen: a fruit bowl for tomatoes and bananas, a dark, dry cupboard for potatoes, onions, and garlic, a pantry shelf for honey, olive oil, and coffee, and of course, the refrigerator for items that truly need refrigeration. Remember, our goal isn't perfection, it's progress. Maybe this week you'll take the honey out of the fridge. Next week, you might find a better spot for your olive oil. Small steps lead to big changes. Final thoughts. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. Our relationship with food should be joyful, not stressful. Understanding how to store our food properly is one way to honor that relationship, to get the most flavor, the most nutrition, and the most pleasure from what we eat. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which of these storage mistakes surprised you the most? Have you noticed a difference in taste when you stopped refrigerating certain foods? Your experiences could help others in our community. If you found this information helpful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more tips on living well at any age. Remember, good health starts in the kitchen, and sometimes the simplest changes can make the biggest difference. Here's to happy, healthy eating. May all your meals be as nourishing as they are delicious.